Hello everyone, welcome to astrologynewsreport.com. Today is October 6th, 2013.
Presenting an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic astrology.
I'm Ron Berger.
And I'm David Anton Savage. Let's take a look at the week that was.
Mercury equals communications, Venus is the planet of negotiations, Rahu is obsession, and Saturn, amongst its many meanings, is obstinacy. And all were together last week in Libra, the 11th house of the USA chart, the House of Congress, and still all of them being aspected by the malefic Mars from its place in Cancer, which is actually in the USA chart the 8th house of chronic problems. The Dems and the Repubs went at each other last week, supposedly to find some middle ground on the federal budget extension, known as the Continuing Resolution, or CR for short.
But the usual suspects had no intention of finding common ground, preferring to blackmail the government by taking Obamacare hostage to funding the government and making for plenty of drama and stormy theater and media circus.
Okay, so to unpack this current crisis a bit, between the Democrats and responsible Republicans, there were enough votes to pass what is known as a clean CR, but Johnny Boehner, who is the Speaker, has the final say on this. He wouldn't allow the clean CR to come to a vote. This, we hear, is because he doesn't want to lose the support of the right wing of his party, which he believes is what is keeping him in power.
Well, geez, a CR sounds like some kind of disease, but in any case, well, more on him in part 3 of this week's report.
Truly. All right. And so last Monday at midnight, the federal government shut down. The immediate effect was 800,000 federal workers were furloughed without pay. National parks were closed. Many federal agencies had to shut their doors.
Yes, airline inspections stopped, food safety inspections stopped, kids with cancer blocked from clinics, nutritional aid babies stopped, and 90-year-old vets got shut out of their very own World War II war memorial, at least for a while.
Well, the public and the media reacted. Get a load of last Tuesday's front page of the New York Daily News. That guy on the front page is none other than Johnny Boehner.
Yep, Boehner can keep the insanity going or step up and bring a clean budget resolution to the floor for a vote and save the country from economic collapse. But it may well cost him his job. And again, more on that later in section number 3 of our show today. All of this provides a perfect example of what happens when you get Mercury, the planet of thinking and reasons, bound up with Rahu, significator of obsession, and then add Saturn's obstinacy for good measure, and then jack the whole thing up with a square from Mars. The Republicans in Congress are looking like a bunch of lemmings with suicide vests.
Okay, I'm just wondering, all this is ostensibly over the Tea Party Republicans' insistence on disabling the Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare, to the point of making that program ineffective. But why are they so stuck on this? Is there something in the USA chart that predicts this kind of behavior?
Yes, indeed, Ron. If you check into the history of this country, it has always been this way. The USA is a Sagittarius rising country. Always right, never wrong, and every constituency applies that credo to itself. And then there's Venus, planet of values, in the dual sign Gemini. You can never escape the fact of this country always having 2 sets of values in play. Oh yes, did I mention that the USA has entered a Venus sub-period? And for the USA, Venus rules the 6th house of struggle and the 11th house of Congress.
All right. Well, I guess that's a good explanation. Okay, Mercury is data and information, and Rahu is an eclipse point, which obscures what it contacts. Thus, Mercury conjunct Rahu gives us confusion and disinformation. But Rahu is also obsession. Obamacare sign-up started last Tuesday, October 1st, and much to everyone's surprise, So many millions of Americans rushed to sign up online that the federal and state government websites set up for the sign-up were overwhelmed. With all its details, categories, and different health care exchanges for each state, the Affordable Care Act causes a lot of confusion for everybody, made worse by the disinformation spread by its various opponents, creating a information war.
Reducing complicated ideas into meaningless phrases.
And then there's the shutdown of the federal government itself. What pain will it cause, and for whom? How long does this last? Mercury combined with Rahu will foster confusion, misinformation, and outright disinformation.
Yes. And what is the why behind all this? A bunch of retrograde, apocalyptic, fear-mongering, narrow-minded purists who can't stand the idea of taxpayer dollars funding anything that helps the disadvantaged people. The very people that the main man of their religion commanded unto them, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor.
All right. Well, I guess
that's not a very good Jesus. I know.
All right. It gets at point that they're being hypocrites, really. All right. Here's one from way out of left field. A mentally unstable woman rams the barriers outside the White House with her car, while her 1-year-old baby is in the back seat. The security forces respond in full force, and she was shot to death in her car.
Yeah, this one really took me aback. It's a bit of a head-scratcher, but it does illustrate quite clearly an astrological principle that planets on the cusp contribute unstable energy to events and outcomes. Just look at the transit chart for Washington, D.C. on Thursday, October 3rd at 2:12 p.m. Right away, you can notice 3 planets on the cusp of 3 different signs. A debilitated Mars at the end of Cancer, a waning moon just inside Virgo, and a weakened Venus at the beginning of Scorpio.
Well, this is really wild because Mars is violence, Cancer is the sign of motherhood, and the moon is mother and the emotional mind, whereas Venus is females and vehicles, and Venus in Scorpio. Scorpio is a significator for evil states of mind. So altogether, this combo was too much for one particular mother on that day in D.C.
A final salvo from Mars, the planet of accidents, before it exited the water sign Cancer. Last week on Wednesday, a ship carrying African migrant workers with over 500 Africans seeking to find work in Europe caught fire and capsized in the Mediterranean off the coast of the Italian island Lampedusa. Only 150 of the people on board have been found alive.
On to something in another area. Venus is the planet of the arts, and it is vulnerable while changing signs and still getting the square aspect from Mars, which equals something bad for the arts. The venerable New York City Opera may be no more. The Big Apple's opera company announced on Tuesday that it is shutting down and filing for bankruptcy. The 7 decades-old opera launched an emergency appeal for funds in mid-September, but did not meet its need of $7 million.
And I couldn't resist this one, Ron. Venus is the significator for costumes, appearances, and theater arts, and Mars has been attacking Venus, which is not good for putting on a show. The Ku Klux Klan rally planned for Saturday, October 5th, had to be canceled because of the government shutdown on September 26th. Officials at the Gettysburg National Military Park granted a special use permit for a rally to a Maryland-based KKK group, but the event has been canceled when park officials rescinded all permits for special events because of the shutdown, which began midnight Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday.
Oh, no, I was so looking forward to it. Okay, with that, we finish our take on the week that was. Be sure to click in with us next week.